The Director of Athletics, Steve Uryasz, joins us on the Big Mountain to talk Tarleton State.
Conference realignment and expansion are always in the news. So we're back on the Big Mountain to keep you updated.
Hey, welcome back to the mountain. I am JY. This is my good friend Steve, and we have another special guest for you this evening. We have Steve Uryasz, the Director of Athletics with Tarleton State University. He just began here at Tarleton State earlier this year, officially April 1st. He has been an administrator for almost 40 years with experience at several Power 5 universities, including West Virginia, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Nebraska. He succeeds a longtime VP of Athletics, Lon Reisman, who retired earlier this year. I am super excited for this. We have talked about Tarleton State many times on our channel, and I'm so anxious to hear what Steve has to say about the Texans. So let's get to the discussion. Steve, we want to welcome you to the Big Mountain. Thank you so much for joining us.
Jason, thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me, and I'm looking forward to spending a little time with you today.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I just want to remind people that may be new to our channel. I'm sure we have some Tarleton State fans here going to listen to this conversation. You know, we focus on the Mountain West Conference, and about a month ago, there were some reports that came out that Tarleton State University may have had some discussions with the Mountain West about possibly joining that conference if there was mutual interest or not. You know, we have actually been following Tarleton State here for many months, even before that happened. You know, we had some fun over the offseason, even before this whole Pac-12 ongoings began, just having fun with like, hey, who might be targets for the Mountain West? At that point,
Sure.
We were talking just additions, like who might they go after? And sure enough, Tarleton State University was one of the schools that we looked at from the FCS realm as a potential target. So again, not new to Steve and me, but I think maybe was a surprise to some when they saw the headlines that popped up on X, like, who's Tarleton State? So, you know, that's part of the reason we want to have you on and maybe start with just answering that question. Can you just inform our viewers a little bit more about who's Tarleton State University?
Yeah, absolutely. So, excited, like I said, to spend some time with you. It's real interesting. I've been month 7 at Tarleton State after spending really 35 plus years at the Power 4 level, Power 5 level. I know you guys know we call them all sorts of different things now. So those terms change, but excited to be here. Tarleton State is a school that I have known about for many, many years because being in Lubbock, Texas, as long as I was, Tarleton has been around, has been on the map. If you look at it, the school started in 1899, so we're right now in our 125th year, and people don't really realize that. It's a founding member of the Texas A&M system. So a tremendous, tremendous tradition. One of the things that was exciting for us when we came down here and interviewed my wife Margie and I, and we pulled onto campus, and it's like, my gosh, this doesn't feel like a small school. So you pull onto campus and you see 3 cranes working on various projects, which represents a tremendous amount of growth. You start asking questions. Hey, tell me a little bit more about the institution. Over 18,000 students. So not necessarily a small school by any stretch of the imagination. Really, you've got 11 women's sports and 7 men's sports. So we're doing a lot here that really puts us in a position to compete at the highest level. And I think that's what's important. The school overall, which is fun for me, has tremendous offerings. Right now in the middle of, just got approved to add a College of Osteopathic Medicine. So that aspect of it makes it very, very attractive. And just all the things that are going on campus that just creates the environment where I knew that our student athletes could be successful athletically and academically. And I'm going to say this, I've got a president who loves athletics and academics equally. That's very, very important as an athletics director, is that you have an individual in that role that does everything within reason to help you be successful. And that doesn't matter if it's athletics, that doesn't matter if it's the College of Business, which was just recently named for Sam Pack, or the College of Engineering. It's all across the board where our support levels are unparalleled.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. I will say I listened to the president's, I believe it was called the State of the University address that was given about a month ago or so.
Amazing.
Super impressive stuff. I mean, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. Anybody that wants to know more about Tarleton State today, go back and check that out on their website. Really interesting stuff. Can you talk real quick about your location? I know main campus is in Stephenville. I think you have
It is.
a couple satellites. Fort Worth looks like it's going to be growing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. The Stephenville campus, geographically where we are, it's a great, great location for a variety of different reasons. We're about an hour southwest of Fort Worth. To put it in perspective, I can be in Dallas in about an hour and a half. I can be in Waco in an hour and a half. I can be in Austin in 2.5. Could be in Lubbock in a little less than 4. So location-wise, it's ideal because when you guys know, you've been around it, you spin the compass and you try to figure out where number one, you can get your students, and number two, where you can get your recruits from. Our alumni base largely stays in the geographic area, which is really nice. So going to Dallas and going to Fort Worth and seeing them is very easy. The campus at Fort Worth is amazing. I was at the dedication of one of the buildings last week. State of the art. The growth there is amazing. The leadership here on campus, Dr. Rachel Capua, who really oversees that branch of our institution, has grown it. Lots of relationships with high schools there, with dual enrollment, a variety of different things, and it's really, really unique. They also have locations in Waco, Rellis. Just the growth and the opportunities are big here.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've seen some headlines on Fort Worth. It looks really exciting. Let's start talking a little bit more about athletics. You
Sure.
mentioned you have 7 men's and 11 women's sports that are sponsored. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about your current conference affiliation for some of those? Dive into some of those sports, and just again paint that picture for our viewers.
Yeah, so to put it in perspective, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and it's everybody across the country, a lot of times you'll have affiliate members in by conference by sport. So, for example, our beach volleyball program is a member of Conference USA. If you take a look at our football program, it's the United Athletic Conference, and you guys know that's a combination of the Atlantic Sun and the schools in the WAC that played football to become the United Athletic Conference. And then, of course, day to day with the remainder of our sports, we're in the WAC conference. So that aspect of it, it's a little bit of it's a conglomerate. But, the previous institution I was in had a program that was in, I'm trying to remember. They started off, it was men's soccer and it floated around. And then we had rifle there, and that was in the Great American Rifle Conference. So you see that quite often. Our menu of sports is strong, so there's a commitment in all of them across the board, which made it important for me as well. And so, yeah, you're seeing that a representation in the UAC, the WAC, and then a little smattering in Conference USA.
So for the most part with travel, you're used to at this point in time staying in the central or kind of going western into the mountain. Is that typically
Yeah,
what you see for travel? Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, it was new for me. I told somebody southern Utah. I had never been to the state of Utah. I went to the state of Utah 2 times in the same week. We had WAC meetings there on Monday and Tuesday. I came home, and then we went back out there to play football. So it was beautiful. Travel wise, just my history is I'm used to traveling. So it's kind of like you guys know as well as I do. If you look at the Big Ten, you're a Penn State guy. You probably didn't think that you'd have some of the schools on the West Coast that you now have. Yeah, you adapt.
Yeah, yeah, very national we're getting here with college
We are.
at the college
Yeah.
level. So, can you spoke briefly about the alumni base kind of staying centralized there? Can you expound upon maybe just the local support, the donor support, what that looks like for Tarleton?
Yeah, when you take a look at our city, it's a little over 20,000 proper. So, strong representation here. One of the things that's really unique is that, Tarleton has such a presence in our community. So when you drive around, you see the logo on all the businesses. We've got great support. Donor wise, we're continuing to grow. So if you came here and looked at our facilities, and you look at our suites in the football stadium, there's not a lot of FBS institutions that have a press box suites, a club like we do. We're 100% sold out of our suites on the west side of the stadium. We have game day tents that we call suites down on the field. There's 8 of those. Great representation there. I think you guys know, you probably looked at the attendance figures. We've had really, really good attendance. Stadium holds right around 24,000 if you pack it. So we have really done well in terms of the support in the area. And I think that bodes well for us as we look, hopefully at some point in our near future, to look at transitioning to that FBS level.
Yeah, a lot there. I want to get more into facilities here in a minute. I know
Sure,
Steve has
absolutely.
been very impressed with some of the items that he has seen here recently. Before we do that, I want to take just a step back. For those that don't know, Tarleton moved up to the D1 level effective July 1st, 2020, but there was
Right.
that 4-year, reclassification period that you had to go through. So you're just now getting out of that this year. I'm sure that felt like it took forever, I would think, if I was in your shoes there at Tarleton. Can you speak to maybe what that was like, during that phase, and just maybe the excitement that you have now that you're finally through that period, and you can do the postseason and do all of that? I saw, I think you set a record for the NCAA academic progress rate. 990 you got 990 out of 1,000 or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, again, just making headlines. But can you speak to what that transition was like, and maybe the excitement to now get out of it?
Yeah, and I think that's really from a complement standpoint, if you look at our sports during that transition period, yes, you're correct. It's a 4-year period of time where basically, I tell everybody, you're in what I call athletic purgatory. You're just kind of waiting and hoping that things transition well. But the truth of it is our coaches did a tremendous job of keeping our student athletes. So you look at that APR rate and retaining them, and then getting them to play at the highest level. It's a very difficult process. And again, I wasn't here for all of that. It's a very difficult process to look a student athlete in the eye that you're recruiting and say, by the way, you will not compete for a championship from a postseason standpoint for blank number of years. And yet our coaches were able to go out there and sell that to our student athletes, and at the same time, really remain competitive. It was amazing to me to get here. I got here in April. So inherited a really, really strong program, as you mentioned, facility-wise. But over that 4-year period of time, the administration here, Dr. Hurley, Lon Reisman, the previous athletics director, really everybody in athletics pitched in to put this institution in a position so that they can compete at the Division I level. Our fans are excited. I don't know that all of our fans, and that's going to be one of our jobs, is to continue to educate them on what it means, because it is different to compete at the Division I level. It is different to recruit at this level, and that support has to change. And we're working with different groups to get them to understand, in order for us to transition again, if we have the opportunity, we will have to step up from there, but there's no question that our group will.
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up on that. So you're just getting through that transition, like JY pointed out, and like you talked about, we're up to FCS. Do you feel, is there kind of overwhelming desire to now make another transition from FCS to FBS, or do you feel like there's maybe some pushback from any of your stakeholders at Tarleton? I mean, is it a consensus that yes, we're ready, we want to go ahead and take that next step, or is it kind of like a mixed bag that maybe you want to get your bearings and feel the ground a little bit at the FCS level before you have to go through another transition process?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both of those. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years in college athletics is that you have to put yourself in a position, to make that transition and work and hope that you have the opportunity to do that. And so we do have a core group of individuals that are like, hey, let's stay here and compete at the highest level. And you guys know the institutions that have perennially been very strong at the FCS level, who have had opportunities to move up and have chosen not to. We know that if we have the opportunity to move up to the next level, we will move there. Do we know a timetable? Absolutely not. So our commitment is to do everything we can to compete at FCS, and we're putting our coaches in that position right now. And we've added new staff in the last 7 months. We've added new coaching staff, all new track, hired a Power 5 track coach, Power 4. I got to get used to that, gentlemen. Went out there and retooled a lot of things administratively, added a whole new development staff, a CFO, which we didn't have before, because as you know, it's become as much of a business as anything. So, those are the things that we're doing to position ourselves. So no matter what we're doing, it's focusing on building our program.
Yeah, that's great. I'd like to talk more about facilities. You hit on that a little bit earlier. You mentioned the cranes that you can see everywhere. And it seems like the university has already invested in that and are continuing to invest in facilities. Can you speak to your current facilities, where they are now, Memorial Stadium, the field house, and then also future plans? I believe there's an arena currently being built there for basketball and whatnot.
Correct.
So just talk about the facilities there.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, when we came on campus, it's like, my gosh, this feels like in many cases, a Power 4 institution. So let's start with the arena. That is actually an event center. So it's not only athletics, but it's everything from our convocation, university programs, concerts, this, that, and whatever. That will open in the fall of 25. A pretty unique facility, holds approximately 9,500 for a concert. We're thinking around 8,500 for basketball. What makes it unique, and we were looking the other day to try to do some pricing comparisons, we have 11 suites in the new venue. Which I said, hey, let's look at the other schools that are FCS type institution that are of our size, and we really couldn't find many out there that had facilities like that. So it's really a state-of-the-art event center that puts our basketball programs in a whole different recruiting situation. We've got a historic gym now called Wisdom Gym, and but this thing is basically 3 times as large. So our fan base is going to be excited. Wisdom Gym has been converted exclusively. Next year will be exclusively for our volleyball program, which creates a great atmosphere for them. When you look at the rest of the facilities, and I'll tell you guys, I can look out the window here. And when I got here in April, we had tennis courts outside my office. And they told me, they said, hey, we're going to have them ready for the fall. We're moving the tennis courts, we're building new ones, and we're going to turn that into a parking lot for motorhome parking on game days. And I thought, there's no way that's going to be done by fall, but it was. So probably build here quicker than anybody could ever imagine. You take a look at baseball, was renovated, I think 4 years ago, all new turf, all new stands. Right now is going through an addition of some ticketing, some restroom additions. We have plans to expand that as well, so that it kind of links our tennis program, which has the new courts, our softball program, which is new in terms of the field. You go around and just kind of go around the facility, all new track. The interior area of track is set up for a football practice field, should we decide or ever need that. And then we have a completely separate soccer complex for women's soccer. From a golf standpoint, we do not have a golf course, and I do not want to own one.
Yeah.
But we are working with a local developer and a donor to help us build a practice facility for our men and women. So if you said to me, what is your biggest facility concern? We don't have anything that's substandard in my mind. We will continue to grow in the football stadium. What that looks like, don't know yet, but you know as well as I do, the key to success is probably not adding more seats, it's adding more premium areas. So what is that? That's loge boxes, that's more suites, that's just experiential things. And schools, there's not very many institutions that can pull a Penn State and fill that baby the way that they do. We've got great turnout, but it's a different animal. Yeah. But really everything facility-wise was in place really well when I got here, and we'll continue to expand on that. Our football team area has gone through a beautiful renovation. I don't know if you got a chance to look at our locker room.
Yes.
You go in there, it's a Power 4 locker room. We're continuing to renovate over at Wisdom to add new training room areas. Just modernizing everything that we can so that we can compete. Beach volleyball too. They have new courts right outside the rec. I got to be honest, I've never been around a program that has beach volleyball, so I'm learning about it as well.
So I have a quick follow-up on facilities because yes, you asked, have we seen the pictures? So as you know, I'm a Penn State fan.
Sure.
And I was very impressed by the pictures I saw of your facilities. Never been down there, but the pictures that were put out on social media. And I will tell you, you said they're Power 4 level. Well, I can tell you the pictures of your facilities, your football facilities, the training facilities, the locker rooms look better than what Penn State had just 2 or 3 years ago. So as soon as I saw that, when I told JY, wow, they are investing in their football facilities, which to me, I mean, at the end of the day, you still need the talent, the players, the organization, all that, but that is a good sign of investment, in your football program. But I want to ask, so obviously we talked about a few facilities. So that are ongoing. For you as relatively new in the job, and again, very impressed with what you guys have going on. Is there any area where you feel if we do make that transition, because you've recently made the transition from Division II to FCS, is there any facilities that if you make that transition from FCS to FBS, you're telling your president, your board, your boosters, hey, these are some areas we still need to make some progress if we want to go up and get into the FBS level?
Yeah, and I think when you take a look at that from a football standpoint, again, it would be what would I do on the premium space? We're adding a new weight room. We took the old volleyball competition gym and turned that into a 10,000 plus weight room. That'll really start construction. It won't open. It starts construction on January 6th. So that was kind of one of the things that we knew we needed to do to really grow and recruit football, a state-of-the-art weight room. I mentioned earlier from a total facility standpoint, baseball would be important to us to finish that project. So that's phased in. So phase 1 will be done before the season begins this year. And then phases 2 and 3 would include locker rooms for the baseball and softball programs, and then the tennis program over in that area. But you have to continually work to improve what you're doing in your football facility all the time at the FBS level. So we will continue to look at ways as we grow. How do we make that a neater environment? We have a press box that's state of the art on the west side of the stadium. We need to do something on the east side. What's the scope of that? I don't know yet. But those are all things that are on the radar, knowing. If you're kind of getting at, is there something incredibly substandard that you have right now that you can't live with, were you to transition to FBS? And the answer is no. Everything is in place for us to compete at the next level, which really, that's what made this job really enticing, because you looked at, what were the opportunities, and they were strong and continue to be.
Yeah, that's great. So I have to circle back. As we started out by saying, I am the Mountain West. I call myself a cheerleader, but I'm a Mountain West fan. I follow everything Mountain West. As we had said, there was some news, I sometimes call it smoke, about the Mountain West, about Tarleton State, mutual interest, or at least the Mountain West had reached out. It certainly appears that the conference is doing things very strategically, very deliberately, kind of spreading a wide net and then having those discussions. At least that's what it seems like from an outsider's point of view. So I guess I would just ask you a couple questions on that. Has there been any continued talks with the Mountain West since October? And then also to get back to maybe a little bit of what Steve asked in terms of the preparedness to move to FBS, maybe not so much on the facility level, but some of the new requirements. Everybody knows about the $5 million. I'm not going to talk about that, but I do want to talk about the sports requirements, what appears that you already meet. The scholarship requirements, all this NIL stuff going on. So I just threw a whole bunch of things out there. So again, just wanting to know if there's been any sort of continued communication, and then also kind of those other preparedness items you would need to move up to FBS.
So let's kind of talk about the communication. And as you know, there's always talk out there of institutions making transitions. So the answer is early in October, even before that discussion began happening. And it was really more of both sides feeling each other out, trying to figure out, is there interest in us? And of course, would we have interest? And the answer is yes. And our institution and president and we've never hid that. So even from our own partners in the WAC, it's just really been good to be able to say, were we to get the opportunity, we would make that transition. So you said it a little earlier that they've been very, very strategic in the process and trying to figure out. It's a slow process.
Yeah.
So if you're asking me if we're meeting every week and discussing that, the answer is no. And we have put what we consider to be our best foot forward to the conference and said, hey, would we be interested? Absolutely. We'd be honored to be part of it and hope that we're part of that discussion. But I've had a couple outlets call and say, hey, we understand that you have an offer in hand. And the answer is we do not have an offer in hand. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
But we've always made it clear that we want to put ourselves in a position to be considered. To that end, and you talked a little bit about, what it's going to take to make that transition, the scholarships, and everything's changing in our business come next year. So,
yes.
And I'd love to tell you on the NIL front what that looks like, but I don't know that any of us really know.
Right.
And that's one of the things that concerns me. But we're committed to growing our scholarships in all of our sports to the level that we can. Obviously, the priorities would be your football program, your men's and women's basketball, your baseball, and then you figure out where you go from there in terms of funding. But we want to continue to do that. We fund in some, not all sports. We fund Alston. We fund cost of attendance. So a lot of those things are already in place for us to compete at that next level. And I think you're going to see institutions across the country making decisions on funding sports, and they'll create levels. And that's really kind of where we are right now. You know what the scholarship counts are in the FCS level. We know, it goes to 105 at FBS. And the question is, where do you go from there? So we haven't made a final decision, but we do know that we will put ourselves in a position to compete. And that's the key there from that standpoint. And that's what's nice about our donor base, our alumni, our president, our fans, is that they do want us to compete at that level if we choose and have the opportunity to go there. We're probably right now, just to put it in perspective, right nearly a $40 million budget, about $39.2 million. So we know that has to continue to grow to compete. And it's grown really in the short period of time since I've arrived here because of various levels of support from different areas. NIL continues to be a challenge at all levels. It certainly has not trickled down to where we are right now compared to the level that I came from, but it's headed that way. Don't think it will ever get to that level. So we just have to be prepared to figure out what does it take, number one, to retain the student athletes that want to stay at Tarleton State University. Number two is to attract those kids and student athletes that have the opportunity to come here. And I would love to tell you that I understand from an NIL perspective how it's all going to work out as it relates to being brought on campus, how that impacts Title IX, how that impacts all those other things, but we don't have those answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody has the answers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think they do. I just saw a comment today that were released. I believe the athletic director for Wyoming, A.D. Berman, released a letter to his, I believe it's to his season ticket holders or something like that, and basically was just saying there's, with NIL, there's opportunities, but there's challenges, and, we have to figure this out. So to your point, I think everyone is figuring out maybe a little bit different levels in terms of what they can or can't afford. But there's challenges, and with challenges that can create opportunities. So we'll have to see what happens, Steve.
Yeah. So I have a follow-up question regarding that, and then I think maybe JY has one more question.
Yep.
So my follow-up question is, as far as strategy-wise, for you have to look out for the best interest of Tarleton State. We're obviously Mountain West focused, but as far as strategy, do you feel like you guys are looking to go up to FBS, no matter, like, that's the main goal, whatever conference would take you, if there's Conference USA, Mountain West, whatever, kind of putting your feelers out in all areas, or are you looking for a specific fit, a specific home, Is the goal to just get into FBS, or is the goal a specific fit? Do you want regionality, or do you just want to be in the FBS, basically?
Yeah, obviously the first thing is you'd like to make the transition to FBS, but I think the thing, guys, that makes us really, really attractive, and I think we talked about it when we first got on here today, is geography. So if I say to you, and this could probably be debated, but what state is the most recruited state in the country? You're going to say Texas.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, if you're an institution right in the heart of the state of Texas, and you're an FCS level institution now, but you could have an FBS presence, and then all that recruiting, the diameter that you could reach, whether it be Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston. We played down in Houston, it's 3 hours. Austin, those student athletes have to go somewhere, but I think you're going to find it's easier to recruit regionally because of simply our location, and then the fact that if you're in an FBS conference, it makes it attractive to those kids because they know they're traveling around, and you can say to parents, hey, it's great, you'll be able to see your son or daughter play in Stephenville, Texas against blank teams here, there, and wherever. I think we're really attractive from a regionality standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, from an academic standpoint, the things that are happening on our campus and research. I just think we fit really with several FBS conferences. I did have an individual call me the other day, and he said, my ultimate goal is you're the new guy, and I think you'll be able to get us into the Big 12. I said, we need to slow down a little bit. So, just excited to be even in the conversation. And I think that's the key, is that, you're in the conversation. I've watched some of the boards out there where people will say, who or what is Tarleton State? It was fun for us to be on ESPN Plus in a week 0 game.
Yeah.
We all laughed too because the Little League World Series went into a rain delay, and they put us on the mothership of ESPN for a little while, and that's coverage and exposure you just can't pay for. So for us, to be in that was good, and we want to continue to do those things. And we got great coaches. I mean, you got Billy Gillespie that's running our basketball program, Todd Witten, some really, really good coaches. Bill Brock, I don't know if you know that name, but Bill was forever at Baylor as an assistant women's coach when they won national championships. And, Fuller Smith, who came in, and this doesn't happen very often, guys. He comes in his first year and wins the WAC conference tournament in baseball. And so last week they handed out championship rings, and I said, it's good and bad, Fuller, because you came in your first year and you won the WAC tournament championship. So the bar has been set.
You got it.
Yeah.
Well, and you just listed the reasons why, to kind of bring this full circle, and then I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
But the reasons why we had looked at Tarleton State back in the spring, it hit all the marks you just mentioned. We have said for a long time that we believe the Mountain West should try very hard to get into the state of Texas. Yes, we know they have UTEP, and that's great. Some people, I think, and this isn't a knock on UTEP, but they get confused if that's Texas or New Mexico because it's so far over. It is that chunk of Texas that's in the mountain time zone, which is interesting. But to get into the heart of Texas, deep into the heart of Texas, we have said it really should be the number one priority for a lot of reasons. And you really just listed them. I'm not going to repeat everything that you said, but recruiting really being kind of at the top of that list is absolutely something that we think the Mountain West should look at very, very closely.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you say that, and obviously I came from a Power 4 institution, and everybody said when that institution was added to the Big 12 conference, that doesn't make sense. Well, I'm not saying that any of it makes sense anymore in terms of where schools are positioned, but it made it a lot easier for that institution to go down into Houston, Dallas, and all those areas and say to those parents, hey, we're going to be down here to play blank, 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 and blank. So it opened up a door that otherwise may not have been available to bring kids in from the state of Texas. And everywhere I have worked, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and West Virginia, Texas recruiting has been key to all those institutions. And I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, totally agree. So my last question may be a very similar question to kind of the NIL comments. Nobody really
Uh-huh.
knows. But that has to do with the college football playoffs. And, we've heard different things that maybe there is this just unwillingness from any FBS conference to look at an FCS school. And there's different reasons to that. One of them being the college football playoffs, the share of the money there. I see some people saying, the Power Two, as we sometimes call them, isn't going to want anybody else to pull up an FCS program. I say to that, what's interesting that they can pull up mid-major programs to them, but then they don't have mid-major to pull up from. So be that as it may, do you have any insight on that with either the college football playoff maybe being an issue, and not just for Tarleton, but for any FCS school looking to move up into FBS?
And I'll just add before you answer, not just the college football playoff. We've heard maybe do the House settlement until that is finalized. Maybe that there was some pushback or resistance for bringing up any FCS schools. Is that something you've encountered?
Specifically as it relates to the college football playoff, I've really not heard that from that standpoint. I think a lot of people, regardless of who you're looking at adding, are sitting there waiting, saying, hey, what will the House settlement really look like for all of us? So you go back and you look at, if I'd have told you 5 years ago that Houston was going to be in the Big 12, you'd have said, well, that's never going to happen. So you really don't know what things look like there from that standpoint. But I think conferences are going to look at those schools that have a history of success, and where geography makes a lot of sense. And you guys have seen that forever. And again, the borders don't make sense of conferences right now, but they're all driven by centers of influence. And we think we're a center of influence. And just like I said, hope that we continue to be in the conversation with institutions and conferences for years to come.
Fantastic. Well, Steve, we thank you for all the time you have given to us. I know we went through a bunch of different questions with you.
No problem.
But again, we really appreciate learning more about Tarleton. I've been very impressed with Tarleton State. And I just have to say, the fans on the socials are some of the best fans that I've seen. I mean, they are fantastic on the socials. So a shout out to some of those people I know I have been conversing with on X. They're awesome.
And if I could just say real quick, 6 months ago, I have to be honest, I didn't know who Tarleton State was. I've been a college football fan all my life. We had some viewers recommend you guys and say, why is the Mountain West not looking at them? And since then, I've been blown away. The investments that you guys have made, we've been following the fan engagement, everything that we see. And again, we're proponents of the Mountain West. And I went from not knowing who Tarleton State was to now, I think the Mountain West is crazy if they don't give you guys an invite. I told JY they should have invited you 2 or 3 months ago, soon as it happened, or even before that. So I've been impressed, and I'll be really interested to see how things go for you guys. And I think you would make a fantastic addition to the Mountain West. And if I was Gloria Nevarez, and we love her, Gloria we trust, if I was her, if I was working with her in the office next to her, I would tell her, you need to call Tarleton State tomorrow and give them that link.
It's really interesting because, I tell everybody, if you come to our campus and you take off all the logos and you say, hey, what level is this institution? You do not think of an FCS school. And that's a great, great compliment. And we want people to continue that. This weekend, football game, Jeff Bacon came in, the commissioner of the ASUN, and the first time on our campus. And I said, hey, let's take a tour. So we jumped in my golf cart and we went around and drove into the open end of the basketball arena. It's like, oh my gosh. And then you drive into football. It's like, whoo, it might not be as big as everybody else, but it's every bit as nice. And I think that's where we're headed.
Fantastic, Steve. Thanks so much for all the time you gave us here on the Big Mountain.
Absolutely. You guys call anytime. Come see us. We'd love to have you in Stephenville.
Would love to see it. Yep. I know pictures are wonderful. I'm sure the real thing's even better.
Great restaurants. I know how sports guys are. You always want to know the best restaurants.
Well, if we come see you, you got to give us a tour in your golf cart.
That's right.
We're in. You just call. I'll take care of it.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Stay well.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that was a great discussion. Again, we thank Steve for coming on the Big Mountain to talk about the Tarleton State Texans. We wish them all the best this season and into the future. If you like what we do here on the Big Mountain, make sure you give this one a like and subscribe if you like our content. We do everything Mountain West, everything Big Ten. We look at the Pac-2. We look at FSU and the lawsuits they have going on. We are everything college football for the entire year. And of course, we do live pick episodes every week. Here in the month of November, we're going to be doing them on Thursdays at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Would love to have you join us. With that, go Texans. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.